Hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you hear us loud and clear. Welcome. We are very glad today to have you at this webinar. I am Laurent Regla, I'm marketing business partner in France for manufacturing. And I'm here today with my colleagues, Mary Donham, who is a global marketing director for manufacturing, and Elena Joshberger, who is Vice President Global Manufacturing, leading the practice for CGI. And so if you have any question, please feel free to add them in the chat. We will answer your question at the end of the presentation. So that's the logistic point on that. So very happy today to share with you our vision on digital factory. There are several approaches when it comes to a beginning of a digital plant. For CGI, it's important to have an holistic perception on the factory of the future. We are aware that the maturity levels varies from companies to companies, also from industry to industries. Nonetheless, with regards to Industry 5.0, we have to think in advance what might be next. So we will go deeper on that, and the floor is yours, Elena. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurent, and a warm welcome from my side also to our audience as of today. As Laurent already said, it's our pleasure with you to share in an external way our vision of a unified manufacturing approach or a digital factory. And what does that mean? We will guide you through our slides we have prepared for you today. We have selected also some references from concrete client environments where we are able to talk about. And so I would say, let's start us. And I'm going to switch the slides, and I hope, Laurent, you can still see all of the slides. That's great. Okay. So a short introduction on CGI and on who we are. So we will not dig very deep into that, but of course it's important that you know where we are coming from. So we are a family-owned company founded in 1976, so over 45 years of excellence, with a turnaround last year of 12.2 Canadian billion dollars revenue. We hit already the 80,000 consultants, so that's coming up very soon. And we are present around the globe, so a true global company. What is interesting also in that context to know is that we really strive, and we are proud to say that we have a very long-term relationship with our clients, on the average, and also in the manufacturing industry, about 28 year plus. So we are really accompanying our clients on a long term, and of course, the last years more and more about digital transformation. And when we see, or when we dig a little deeper on CGI in the manufacturing industries, what does that mean? I mean, everyone has a little different definition maybe or perception on what manufacturing industries is. For us, it represents 8 sub-industries coming from more from the commercial and industry level, like aerospace, automotive, industrial products, or high-tech and electronics, and also leading towards chemical, pulp and paper, the metals and the mining industry. So manufacturing as a total in CGI is about 8% of our total revenue. And we have around 6,000 manufacturing consultants, 2,800 supply chain experts. And the last point, I already mentioned it already, we aim and we strive for long-term partnerships. Now, to tell you a little bit about the culture, and this is in fact one of my favorite topics, and Laurent already strived it a little bit when pointing towards Industry 5.0. We have a holistic view on how we see our environment. We're supporting people, our people that are working side by side. We support the communities in which we live. So we are actively asked to contribute in our communities. And the third point, and we will get back later to that, we support the environment. So we also have committed to becoming net zero by 2030. And we are working together with our clients at this very moment in driving sustainability actions and sustainability measures, to also bringing sustainability, whether it's in circular economy, whether it's in really bringing down the CO2 footprint as quick and as fast as possible. When we look a little bit into the future of manufacturing, and I'm not going to invite you on a Star Trek enterprise because it's really eminent what happens currently and what is happening already also before the pandemic. And let me get a little bit back in time, 2011, 2012, when this whole Industry 4.0 concept really started. What we are seeing, and our Voice of the Clients initiative, which is a global program from CGI, we are interviewing in that global program over 1,700 in 2021 clients around how manufacturing industry is changing. And I'm telling you, not really news that customers since a couple of years now have been thinking about moving from a pure, let me say, product producer towards more service orientation. And this is enhanced also during the pandemic by focused customer-centric solutions, all with the aim to trigger growth. Then you have the second point, whereas in the past you had the specialist at the core, right? Imagine a work floor, a shop floor, where there was one specific person for one dedicated sub-process, for one dedicated IT application maybe, and he knew it by heart. On the other hand side, it was often not documented. Due diligence was a very challenging topic, and we are now in more and more moving towards a data-driven approach, so that becomes data at the core, with one of the goals, obviously, to bring down the costs, but on the other hand side, also to raise business agility and to furthermore becoming a responsive and predictive enterprise. And the last point is a very interesting one. Going back now 10, 15 years, companies really competed on their own. And of course, in dedicated fields, they're continuing to do so. However, we see more and more ecosystems arising, ecosystems in which third-party participants are partnering together and helping in creating new business revenue streams that have never been before. So all with the aim to raise business agility and also, you can say, pointing to growth. Now, when we move on, to have a little bit of definition or clarification on the terms. Sometimes we're talking about Industry 4.0, sometimes we're talking about Industry 5.0. So what is that all about? To make a little time travel with you, you all know about the previous industrial revolutions, right? From steam engines over the early stages of the internet. But the interesting thing is, and to point your side a little bit towards the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution, whereas it was all about, and still is all about, increasing efficiency, having digitized processes in place, and really having that performance topic that is and remains still a big factor. But we have noticed, also due to the lack of talents that we are all facing, especially in the digital transformation sector and the tech sector, that what we are seeing and perceiving now is really a move towards a responsive 21st century, where we find ourselves on the frontier tech to purpose and inclusivity. Demographics are changing, generations are changing. With them comes the perception of what does really give purpose. And that means also somehow the contract between employer and employee slightly is changing. So what does that mean? The European Commission has released a commission paper in 2021, which is really elaborating on the concept of Industry 5.0. Yeah. So it completes the concept of 4.0 with the digitization of the processes and so forth, but it acknowledges the limits of the planet of the one hand side, pointing towards sustainability, and it places to an even higher degree the well-being of the worker at the center of the production process, but even more also fostering inclusivity and regarding an employee no longer as a pure human resource, but instead as a long-term investment that has to be taken from both sides, right? So to conclude or to continue, we have this triangle of stakeholders with the technology that will always remain and is also on the heart of our CGI activities. You have this human-centric approach also being triggered by the pandemic continuously. And you have the sustainability point of view. So it's for sure one aspect that there is no planet B, but there are also on top statal regulations in place where we say in future, a company cannot afford not to be sustainable anymore because it will not find any more money on the capital market. So taking these considerations into account that we need to balance, and we all know this is not an easy task, nonetheless, it's important and worth thinking about it. What might be the preferred future, right? If everything comes the way that we expect, and if we shape our world towards a CO2 carbon footprint neutrality, balancing at the same time personnel and technology, this could be for sure a desirable future. But as we know, and we are not naive, life is always about scenario thinking. And so potentially we will have different aspects and different evolvements of the three cycles you can see here. So to conclude and to give you a little bit an information about where the manufacturing industry is pointing, I was referring on our Voice of Clients interviews program that we conducted also last year. And especially when we look into the future investment areas in manufacturing, from a manufacturing point of view, data analytics, cyber and operational technology security are by far the highest scores we have achieved. Digitization in terms of digitizing processes and so forth. And on a 3 years potential, you will find with 71%, and we asked this question for the first time last year, sustainability has become also a very pressing topic. So with all that informations going around, concepts, industrial concepts, digitization on the other hand side, plus the pandemic that we are all facing now already in the 3rd year, we said our CGI vision of a smart factory must be a unified one. And when you look it up, that term, this adjective in the dictionary, then it will get you the mark to make or become united, uniform whole, brought together, combined, united. So that means we need to involve several people, organizations, countries, plants that work together. And when we say, what is our vision for the future of manufacturing? It is built basically on 5 building blocks coming from how to connect machinery, how to become a data-driven organization, how to truly digitize my processes and becoming paperless. What is it all about when connecting operational technology into a digital world? And last but not least, what does that mean for my cloud transformation? to really transform the applications into the cloud. So to conclude, unified manufacturing is our vision for the future of production. It aims to unify the manufacturers within their plants, across the value chains, and obviously we were talking about ecosystems across a wider ecosystem. And what does that really mean, and how is that broken down into the different, I would say, cornerstones? I will pass the mic to my colleague Mary, who's going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Helena. So the next step we took was really looking at how do we apply this vision of becoming a unified manufacturer for the digital factory. So we're looking at the concept of a factory that is alive, that is embedded in self-learning, connected in real time, and is able to respond flexibly and securely across its different systems. And that's both for the assets within the plant and also for the worker. So going back to our 5 blocks then for a digital factory, we're going to take just a quick look at what those are. So at a high level then, the connected block is really about the convergence of IT and OT. So it's bringing the factory to life through communication networks such as 5G, using IoT technology, sensor technology for old assets to enable them to communicate as well. And it's with these technologies that the plant can start to have that sensing and the ability to report, you know, their perspective with machines and shop floor personnel. The second block is what we're calling digital and paperless. So on a basic level, you know, we're looking at taking paper out of the system, automating processes, but at a more innovative level, you know, we're looking at incorporating technologies such as AR and VR to help really elevate that worker experience. The third block is all about becoming a data-driven factory. So with the right data at hand, manufacturers are more able to make decisions based on fact and likely to achieve the results that they are after. OT, IT security, our 4th block, is all about helping manufacturers to stop cyber attacks before they happen, to ensure that production and processes keep running. You know, core to this is also employee awareness as well. And the last block that Helena mentioned was cloud. So at this step, we're looking at the processes within the plant, within the factory, and which ones are ripe to move into the clouds and transforming the factory and its potential. So during this webinar, we will be doing a little bit of a deep dive on each of these blocks and bringing those to life. But firstly, I just wanted to explore, you know, how do we take that first step? Hopefully you can see these slides. Yeah, good. All right. So the unified factory, the digital factory, is designed, oh, sorry, wrong slide. Is designed with business objectives top of mind. Now, these could be, you know, the more traditional Industry 4.0 types of goals, such as increasing efficiency, decreasing costs, and, you know, using automation to achieve that. But we're also feeding in here some of the more Industry 5.0 goals, such as becoming more sustainable through waste reduction or offering more personalized options to our customers, and just supporting that human-machine balance for well-being. So, you know, regardless of where our clients are on their journey, and regardless of their objectives, really at this point, with a digital factory in place, the options are pretty limitless in terms of what is possible. And therein lies one of the key problems. You know, what we hear from our clients often, and it's similar to my children trying to decide what to watch on Netflix, that, you know, there's so much choice that making that first step can often feel very overwhelming. You know, are we going for being a sustainable business? Do we want to increase efficiency? And we have all of these different technologies, digital twins, RPA. You know, taking that first step can be a bit of a challenge. And that is not the only challenge. So we just wanted to take you through some of the other key challenges we are seeing when our clients are moving along that digital transformation journey. So here in Europe in particular, we're seeing aging workforce becoming an issue. People who've been in the organization for many years, who have deep knowledge of the assets that they're working on, that know the processes like the back of their hand, are retiring. And, you know, we're hearing that it's difficult for manufacturers to attract replacement skill sets. In fact, this was 5 years ago, so the number will have increased since then. But 5 years ago, the Manufacturing Institute mentioned that nearly a quarter of all of the USA's manufacturing workforce was aged 55 or older. And that was 5 years ago. So they're now over 60. So it's a really key issue that are facing manufacturers at the moment. On a kind of flip side of that, there's also the issue of attracting new Industry 4.0 skill sets. So going back to the voice of the client research, which Helena mentioned earlier, one thing that we're seeing from what we call digital leaders is that one of their top challenges is really attracting that digital talent, the talent that's going to enable them to accelerate on their transformational journeys. And of course, there are other challenges, not just talent challenges. We have assets that are old and aged and weren't designed to connect digitally. And there's a hesitancy as well, so that we have whole organizations whose culture and investments have been put into a certain paradigm, a certain way of looking at the world, which, you know, are not necessarily ready, or there's a hesitancy about taking those new steps towards becoming a more digitally led business. And with that, you know, there's some uncomfortable feeling when we're thinking about change, and perhaps there's a misalignment sometimes between IT and business. So a lot of challenges facing manufacturers in terms of taking that first step. So how do we move forward? So we have a framework which we call Manufacturing Atlas. And this has been built over 3 decades of experience. It's been refined and perfected through taking our clients through the digital transformation journey. And it's all about going into the organization, assessing the current landscape, and really crafting a route forward that is unique to that organization, a holistic route forward that integrates IT and OT and really enables that organization to successfully meet their objectives while minimizing business risks. So our 4-stepped approach is a framework that really starts from going in and looking at running an initial feasibility study and supporting the client all the way through investment decisions and rolling out the solutions that will meet their objectives and goals. But it is not just fully focused on digital. As we mentioned before, you know, part of being a digital factory is having this unified approach. It can't solely look at technology. It has to bring in people. It has to bring in processes and information too. I mean, it's all well and good having this, you know, innovation team that's creating the hottest new solutions. But if you don't have the processes and the people to really turn that into reality and create that real transformation, that program is going to fall over. So maturity needs to be achieved in each of those 4 key areas. And I think it's important to say here, you know, regardless of where you are on that transformation journey, that's taking it a step-by-step approach. So whether it's looking at Industry 4 or Industry 5.0s, you know, we can apply the same framework to that transformation journey. So within this consultation, you know, it will help us answer questions such as, are all parts of my business on board with this strategy? Does my strategy take into account all of the different processes across the factory and the plant? What data am I looking at? Do I understand it? How do I source it? And what technology is best for us to employ as a business? And that's not going to be the same for everyone. So I'm not going to go into Atlas anymore, but if you are interested, of course, drop us a line. It's a good starting point on a transformational journey. And over to Helena, who will take us on a deeper look through the connected block.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, connected. Obviously, it is the first part of our journey that we take, right? So when you regard visually now a shop floor with all the production machinery, all the production systems on site, obviously you will find in most of the cases a heterogeneous landscape, right? So we'll have newer production machinery, older ones, production machinery that speaks already IoT and that has either implemented IoT devices or afterwards you took them on board. So the first thing obviously is to start our journey with a strategy setting with the client. Yeah, so we help manufacturers here in the design and the prioritization of their digital initiatives. And then obviously it's the first thing when you would like to start off, what is your inventory? What do you have already on board? So meaning, how old is the machinery? Does the machinery speak IT, as I said, or not? Is there a suitable network in place? It might be a 5G network in the future time, or narrowband IoT, and many others. So you have to answer a lot of questions also about latency. How is your production already in terms of, must it be in real time? Is a certain latency acceptable or not, depending also on the quantity of production units you have and so forth. So we support our client in selecting, obviously, the right IoT sensorics, implementing it. We are doing as well a lot of IoT health checks on the already existing landscape and all that thing around testing, because the ultimate goal of getting the machinery connected is extracting the data for the later on data lake. And then, of course, depending on the business outcome I would like to have, then paving the way, I would say, towards data analytics. But we all know, and Mary will get back to that a little later on, also data analytics and machine learning and all that kind of algorithmic work is really nice to have, and obviously will deliver also the potential outcome. But first of all, you have to do all the data assembly, the data cleaning, the data preparation until you really reach that stage of doing the data analytics. And we've brought you also an example, effectively 2 examples, where we have done that already in the past. Yeah, that these are the classical examples, like Cytec, it's a leading Trimble construction technology provider, where we help the client really to get his production assets connected to derive all sorts of healthcare status, healthcare factors, where we could downstream later on then do all the predictive analytics towards maintenance. But we also helped to reduce the energy consumption in production, which points already, again, back to our sustainability topic we were referring before. We did that on securely connecting the data to cloud-based, in this case, Microsoft Azure platform, to do the real-time analysis. And in that context, there's also another That is a US example, a US reference we have brought to you. It's a big elevator manufacturer. And the nice thing here with elevators is you can monitor a lot of things, right? So for everything from motor temperature, shaft alignment, even the speed that an elevator moves up and down, and whether the speed might trigger some threshold and causing some non-safety for the passenger it is transporting. All these kind of things obviously gain trust for the manufacturer and human centricity trust, because when you know that you will be not held at night in an elevator, instead the company is upfront doing its maintenance, condition-based maintenance, you feel much safer, and this pays off and counts also in terms of safety, in that case not of the worker but of the passenger. Right, I hope you're ready for our second column of the digital factory. Back to you, Mary.
So yes, as mentioned, this block is really about streamlining and automating processes which are traditionally either time-consuming, paper-heavy, or people-intensive. So, this is all about creating efficiency and cost optimization. But it's also about the staff, it's freeing them up to work on more innovative programs and tasks. And something that's really critical, especially when you're looking at Industry 5.0, is that sense of purpose. So if we can remove some of the less nice tasks and free staff up to work on more exciting things, it's a win-win scenario. So by integrating MES and ERP systems, manufacturers can benefit from more harmonious and efficient operations. And I also mentioned before, that sense of elevating our communication with each other and with machines through AR and VR. So I'm just going to take you through some examples of work that we're doing at the moment around that topic of mixed reality. So one of the hot topics in the market, of course, is digital twin technology. So digital twins is where you have a virtual or digital representation of a physical counterpart. So when you have that, it makes it much easier at looking into the systems without having to change them physically, and looking at ways to optimize or control operations digitally as well. So we're currently supporting a mining organization by providing them with a digital twin, a digital representation of their plant. And this has been integrated with their work order system. And then that allows them to track hundreds of maintenance staff throughout the day and the different tasks that they're working on, thus, allowing them to really expedite the repairs that need to happen and the maintenance within the plant. So a really concrete example of how digital twins are supporting manufacturers at the moment. I also wanted to bring your attention to some work that we have done in Kiruna. So you may have heard of Kiruna. It's a mining town in northern Sweden. And to continue the safe growth of that mining industry in the town, they had to, well, they are in the process of moving the whole town, 18,000 residents, 3 kilometers down the road. And that includes many of their historic buildings. So as you can imagine, that's not an easy task. And to help them do that, they need to really have deep and careful architecture plans for the new city and a thorough understanding of the infrastructure and the requirements needed. So to support this, our experts developed a HoloLens solution. So this is a solution that combines GPS-enabled data and GIS data from the city to produce a map of concealed or hidden infrastructure. So think of everything that you can't necessarily see that's under your feet, like gas pipes and the likes. This is then augmented onto some hollow lenses, which enables the wearers then to see when they step outside what's actually beneath their feet. And that's helping, their architecture with the move of the city. So again, a really critical way of how technology, augmented reality can really support, people in difficult situations. Another example I wanted to just highlight today was our solution, Eva. So this is a video-assisted remote collaboration tool, and it enables organizations to collaborate and communicate in real time with the aid of video. So, we have clients that are using it for over-the-shoulder training. Someone might be looking at the engine while someone is in an office, in a different country, behind a laptop, guiding them on the next steps. We're also helping clients use this technology to improve the customer experience, so they can view their products, and this is for very high-end, costly products. They can see those being developed in real time through this technology, and that really brings a different level of personalization and experience to the customer. So some powerful case studies there. Now, just to move on to our third block, data-driven. So for me, data really is the foundation of smart manufacturing. On a basic level, data is what gives manufacturers that awareness, that insight into what's happening within their plant. If you don't know what's happening, you can't really improve, and you open yourself to risk as well. So with data, manufacturers are able to monitor and control critical operations more effectively, and it shows a light into where we can bring improvements into the processes and the production of products as well. And it also allows us to measure ourselves against our KPIs. So regardless of, the organization's objectives or values, we can use data to measure success, whether that's against efficiency, whether that's sustainability, whether it's cost reduction. Data gives us the ability to do that. So by collecting, processing, and analyzing that data, we really shift from becoming reactive to proactive. And then with that insight, we don't have to make best guesses anymore, but we can actually have the knowledge to experience powerful gains and meet our objectives, whether that's heightened agility, higher automation, or even better supply planning. So it was no surprise, really, going back to Helena's slide earlier, that 90% of our clients have ring-fenced data as a key spend in this year's VOC, Voice of Our Client survey. So much like the digital transformation as a whole, we believe that to become a data-driven company, in becoming a data-driven company, organizations do face multiple challenges. Similar to the digital transformation, there's often a lack of clarity on priorities. What is it your organization wants to achieve? Or there's a lack of knowing in terms of what data they need to achieve what they want to achieve. And as Helena was mentioning before, there's inconsistent data types, there's lack of content or meaning behind the data as well. So there's a lot of issues that organizations face in becoming data-driven. So here at CGI, we recommend taking a modular approach to becoming an insight-driven manufacturing and having a plan on how you move forward. So much like manufacturing, this framework offers an assessment of your current status and has the tools and methodologies to better understand where you want to get to as well. And then within that, steps of methodically getting to that end result. So knowing that, we can't scale a mountain in a day, but to take, small steps and improvements along the way. So if we just look at the increasing intelligence within automation, because this also is a journey itself. And, as you go up the chain, you start to see greater benefits. And that's where you start to move along from, industry 4.0 all the way to industry 5.0. So at the very basic automation, RPA, we're using here rule-based algorithms to improve the manufacturing processes. So these are typically processes that are transactional and based on simple logic. So if X, then Y. So quite simple things, but we can go into an organization and look at where we can bring this level of automation to improve activities and minimize human errors. But they're typically structured and predictable, and they're kind of focused on smaller kind of bite-sized chunks. Then if we move along, we get to intelligent process automation. And here things start to get a little bit more interesting. We start incorporating more complex logic and looking at machine learning capabilities. So this is, we start to see the returns on investment here amplify as manufacturers move towards, wider enterprise automated solutions. But we're still looking at using structured, predictable data. We then move on to cognitive. And this, again, is a step up in complexity. So within cognitive computing, we're looking at unstructured data types. So this is looking at big sets of data, applying pattern recognition, applying machine learning and things like natural language processing. And you may start to see this sort of thing in customer services, for example, like chatbots and using customer-facing programs which learn as they go. But we have also been applying that within the production process itself. So we've applied machine learning, for example, for a steel manufacturer to help them reduce their wastage and get an insight into how can they improve those processes. And then moving along, then we reach artificial intelligence, which increases again in complexity. So here we're incorporating technologies like neural networks or genetic algorithms, where we replicate some of the processes that we see in nature, and the system can start making complex decisions and inferring from that. And again, this can have significant impacts in product and process design. Just wanted to take a moment to, I guess, wave a tale of caution in terms of AI. So when we start using artificial intelligence, of course, it raises, a few questions around accountability, around bias. It can be seen as a little bit of a black hole, especially with the self-learning algorithms, for example. We can't necessarily in the past been able to see what's actually inside the code, how it's actually making those decisions. So in order to make it, work for the principles that we set out at the beginning, it's really important to have that explainable AI, in that the code itself can have the ability to explain how it's been built and shaped over time. And we're helping clients do this and achieve this in the realms of autonomous driving, and also within the traceability within production. So being able to have a look at, how a particular result has been created. So that's a whistle-stop tour of all the possibilities within data. And I wanted to hand the mic now to Laurent, who will take you through a particular case study in France.
Yeah, this is another example on how a manufacturer can leverage data to find new business model. Data is not only in the factories, but you can have many infos on your customers, on your users. And with Michelin, we partner with other stakeholders like BNP Paribas Cardiff, Colas, and Total Energy for a few months now. On an ecosystem called the Better Driving Community. The idea is to collect data from the drivers and to analyze them, find the use case. So, for example, Colas can understand driving behaviors in a certain area and understand why there are more accidents around there. So this is another example on data. And what is interesting on that is the ecosystem approach. We can't do that alone. We need to partner with an ecosystem, suppliers, providers, whatever, and customers. So this is another example.
Wonderful. Yeah. Then I take over from here. Thanks a lot, Laurent. And again, the ecosystems hits us. I could speak hours about that, but let's stick to our core processes here. IT/OT security is our next topic. It's actually one of my favorite. And I remember 20 years ago when I was working in telecommunications, it was then all about fixed mobile convergence, right? So having the fixed devices becoming more and more mobile. At this very point in Industry 4/5.0, we are at the very crossroads of IT and OT convergence, so to say, yeah, because the operational technology speaks more and more IT, but it has not been designed the same way like our IT systems. We will get back to that in a minute. So, of course, with all security assessments, the first activity and the first duty you have to do to perform security assessments that applies both for IT and even more for OT. We do that by different technology enablers. So the standard industry standards in place, right? Like the ISO 27001, for example, or the North American NIST standards. And there are a lot of tools obviously in place. So as a consultancy company and systems integrator, we are of course technology partner agnostic, but we have all the partnerships, the global partnerships in place, and according to the needs of the client, we apply the relevant and the appropriate one. So security assessment is all about, you know, seeing where the backdoors are open, and then downstream, of course, propose according to these standards potential and also cost-effective mitigations. Because at the end of the day, 100% security will not happen. We all know that. And the last decision, of course, has the management or the executive management of a company to accept a rest level of risk, right? So what we do a lot as well is guiding our clients throughout the whole OT security process. And it is no wonder that the weakest part in the chain is always the human part. So a constant security training and awareness training is really key on keeping up the security as high as possible. And what I've brought you in this context as well is when we are regarding productionary machinery, so-called operational technology, we must know that in most of the cases, and due to their history and historic usage, they are insecure by design, right? So they have been designed for high availability, producing at a large scale units, but they are not necessarily defined and designed for security. Yeah. So the high connectivity that they are confronted now with means that we have a huge challenge here and a huge activities to perform. And of course, the first step towards that is getting acquainted with the visibility, knowing where my backdoors are open, and then act accordingly. What we have as CGI is a proven OT security program to really safeguard our clients. That is really according to the NIST standards, in Europe also more the ISO standards, getting the insights, doing a pre-assessment, making a proper maturity assessment. Where do I stand? And similar to what Mary said before, in doing a maturity assessment in the manufacturing atlas, the same approach more or less, although the single activities are of a different topic, apply here. We can do that on the network. We can do that on the applications themselves, on the production applications, and on the entire landscape, so to say. And when we have a look into one case study that we have brought for you, I selected that because it was really, in fact, a huge reference and a huge project. And there was a global team of over 40 operational technology cybersecurity consultants that assessed in an oil and gas company, which is usually a potential threat. Imagine an oil and gas company being attacked from the outside world, which kind of consequences that might have. And we were asked to really assess across 14 countries, 26 plants. Yeah, so you can imagine there have been heterogeneous landscapes, security procedures in place, and so forth. So we performed the assessment. We included the customer from various departments into that. We even designed a new security, an entirely new security architecture with dedicated DMZs, demilitarized zones, to protect the production, and also set up a dedicated help desk center for continuous improvement and so forth. So these are the kind of topics we are dealing in OT security. There are others we could name, but with regard to the time, I will flip to our last column, which is called the factory cloud. And for the cloud has been always an interesting topic to discuss, whether you are in North America, whether you are in Europe, and especially when you are a manufacturer with a lot of intellectual property. For a lot of years, the cloud was a little bit the scapegoat, and it was regarded like, oh, is it secure? Where is the data centers and so forth? In the last years, this perception obviously has changed a lot. And the benefits of application modernization and starting the journey towards the cloud has become more and more of interest. And especially when we are talking about the latency topic, where we need to have real-time data and not much latency in our real responses, the cloud is obviously one of our best allies, right? And I would like to give you a short information also coming out of our voice of the clients. Globally, 62% of our interviewed executives have said that they are planning to modernize at least 21%, which represents 1/5, right, of their organizational applications portfolio in the next 2 years, and moving it to the cloud. And this is an interesting thing, because when you start with your architectural landscape and where to start again, the same like Mary mentioned, how can we start and how do we assess at all the applications we have in place? And one potential answer to that might be our application portfolio management framework, where we have dedicated triggers to analyze applications according to their elegance of code, which programming code is used, and so forth. And then with scoring cards to really estimate, okay, how much worth does my application bring in terms of business outcome, and how far might it be transported to the cloud, yes or no? And just to give you a quick glance, this is also a structured approach from planning, discovering, until transformation, and downstream then the management, which is quite interesting. And we had a large enterprise transformation in a German automotive company, where we were asked really with over 50 colleagues to do and to support them in an agile way to accompany and align their cloud transformation. So this is at a glance. And with these words, I would like to give back to Laurent, because I think we already have in the chat some questions, right, Laurent?
We do have one question from Pritam regarding the Industry 5.0. It seems more like an extension of Industry 4.0 on human aspects and sustainability. So his question is on, given that Industry 4.0 still is not still mature at scale, what is the feasible timeline for Industry 5.0?
Good question, and thanks a lot for asking. Well, it's always a personal answer to that. I would say, as always, it depends, and in which industry you are in first, and second, what is the maturity level of your own company, right? So we are facing and we are seeing clients in our executive meetings that have a very mature state already, and they are thinking about becoming more and more sustainable because they have done their homework so far. For them, I would say the time frame is quite short because they already started. When we look up to Sweden and to Finland, for example, where we have so many initiatives going on in green steel, producing green steel at large scale, building hydrogen production plants, I would say that would be really rather a short term, so 1 to 2 years, because that's becoming reality. When you ask me in other branches, might still take 6 to 8 years. So I think there's no one conclusion for that.
We also have a question. I received a question from Paula. We mentioned ecosystem, but who are our partners? She wants to know more about that.
Well, we have a lot of ecosystems. I mean, Laurent just mentioned the Michelin case. Another topic in that context would be the German Catena X initiative under the European umbrella of Gaia X. What has been done there and is still ongoing is that outgoing from the disrupted supply chains we faced during the pandemic, German car and automotive OEMs founded this Catena X, Catena like the chain. And what they are doing is they are partnering with third-party participants from other industries to deriving new revenue streams and also to become more and more sustainable in terms of circular economy. So we are partnering with these automotive companies at this very moment and building, for example, a data exchange platform to build a material path for electrical vehicles and bringing them back to the recycling loop.
Thank you, Elena. And I have one last question, I think. It's on how do we convince the organization on all that topics we went through?
Of course, this is the portfolio and the whole potpourri of the flowers we have presented as of today's. Normally, we are not convincing our customers. Rather, we are getting into dialogue with them. They tell us where their most urgent needs are, and then we find out together. If the demands and the requirements are too complex, we try to reduce complexity with them with dedicated frameworks, as Mary already mentioned with the manufacturing atlas. And then also we have the constraint of budget. We are not that naive to know that we are not living on a green field, right? So every company has a certain budget and we need to respect that budget. And with the given time, resources and budget, we need to find the optimal way for the client to start and continue their digital transformation journey.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I don't see any more questions, so maybe we can end there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Elena. I hope we've answered your question. If you have more, you can rely on us, no problem, and we will link you to our experts.
Thanks a lot for participating. Have a good day, afternoon and evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.